Today is a very special day for my 55 Chevy Bel Air project. I'm headed north up to Nashville to pick up a donor engine that I found on Marketplace for only $400. Unfortunately, it is not a 292 Chevy Inline-6 like I wanted. Those things seem to be as elusive as a jungle cat because I am having a hell of a time finding one nearby and within budget. So for now, here's what we're working with. It's a 235 Inline-6 backed up by an SM 420 4-speed out of a 61 Chevy Apache pickup truck. The truck itself was deemed unsalvageable due to severe rust in the frame and body, but according to the guy I bought it from, this engine is less than 500 miles under a fresh rebuild. But as you guys know, you can't trust anything or anyone from Marketplace until you dig into it yourself. But I figured for $400 for a non-locked up engine was worth the gamble. So we loaded it up and I headed back home to see what I could do to get this thing to fire. First step, get it out of the bed of the truck. Easier said than done with one arm. Regardless, I got her sitting on the ground ready for initial inspection. I started by checking to see if I had any detrimental missing components. Other than not having a shifter linkage or serpentine system, it was pretty much all there. Next, I went ahead and popped off the valve cover to reveal a very clean valve train. No signs of moisture contamination or any kind of excess sludge buildup. Maybe this thing was recently rebuilt. It did have a few shavings of rattle can paint just kind of chilling in the bottom, but nothing that the old shop vac couldn't handle. I did find that the ignition coil had been damaged, as well as the #1 plug wire. Also, the fuel lines had been split in half, and the carburetor was rocking what I could call a custom one-off steel wool air cleaner. Keeps the bugs out, but doesn't do much for aesthetics. I then turned my attention to the spark plugs themselves. I checked each one individually, making sure they were properly gapped and cleaned before reinstalling. After a quick run to the parts store, I then started installing a new ignition coil and wires, along with hot wiring the battery to the starter, but unfortunately, that's when things kind of started going downhill. Now the first part of that video, you guys probably noticed that I was wearing a big old cast on my arm. Well, that's because I had just had distal bicep repair surgery. So when I first started shooting that video, I had just had surgery like maybe a couple weeks before, and I was feeling good, felt like I could get out, do some stuff, so I drove up to Nashville, got that engine, set it down, did all those things, and then when I started working on like the ignition coil and the plug wires and all that stuff, my arm really kind of started hurting a little bit. So I was like, oh, you know what, let's just call it a day. You know, I've been pushing it all day, let's just punt and try it again tomorrow. Well, the next day my arm was hurting even worse. So I was like, ooh, okay, maybe I better take a whole week off. But anyways, I had gone to the doctor and did kind of like a post-op follow-up procedure or a checkup, I guess you could say. And the PA put me on paperwork only duty at work. So, and as most of you guys know, when you're on workman's comp and you go through something like that, if you're on paperwork only duty at work, you're on paperwork only duty at home as well. And it's just kind of more of a liability thing, and well, let's call it liability and accountability. And of course I was being stupid at the time and just really pushing myself harder than I should have been. But as you can see now, I've got a different cast on. This thing's got a little bit of rotation in it, you know, a little bit of adjustability. So I'm about, let's say, I think I'm 4 weeks, 5 weeks maybe, post-surgery now. Yesterday I was feeling really, really good, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try and go back to work a little bit. So I came out here, started playing around with the engine a little more. I tried turning it over, and of course I'm filming all this stuff for you guys too as I'm going along. Put some gas in it, just trying to see if I can get it to fire, but it seemed like the starter just wasn't really cranking, or didn't have enough cranking power to turn the flywheel. So I was like, figured maybe the starter was gummed up a little bit. So I decided I was going to pull the starter apart and do kind of like a redneck rebuild and on the workbench. Of course, I was going to film all of it for you guys because I figured it'd be something that would intrigue you guys a little bit. But I went to go take it off, and I was bracing my arm, my left arm, with one hand, and I was trying to take the top bolt off the starter with the other hand. And it was kind of rusty, and it finally broke free, and then I kind of hit my own hand/arm with this arm, and when I did, the momentum just kind of I don't know, it shot a bunch of paint up my arm. It kind of gave me a tingly sensation all throughout my body. Very similar to what I felt when I initially had the injury. And so, to be honest, it scared me a little bit. And it kind of was a wake-up call, and I realized that I need to just slow down. Which is hard because I'm a self-motivated person, and I want to continue working on this car and that engine and get this thing back on the road. But for right now, for my own safety, my own well-being, long-term wise, I need to just kind of chill out on turning wrenches for a while, at least until this is healed up. But I want to give you guys some reassurance that this is not the end of the road as far as content goes. I've called in a few favors with some friends, and as well as some fellow YouTubers and influencers, and we're going to do some collaborating and some barn finds. We're going to walk through some junkyards. We're going to do some more content that doesn't involve me turning wrenches as much, but more of like the entertainment side of things, you know? Let's just go out there. There's hundreds of thousands, if not millions of you car guys and car gals out there that I want to meet and talk to. So if you got a cool build or ride you're working on, and you might be interested, if you're in the Nashville area and you want to do some collaborating, hit me up on my socials, and we'll just kind of work together and see if we can build each other up and, you know, just kind of have a good time. Because fortunately, until this thing's all healed up, this poor old girl's going to have to wait until spring. But till then, appreciate you guys riding along with me on this journey. I'll see you again.